shift and stare. And we're all here this week. We're going to have some fun because even though things like SEMA aren't happening, Indy 500 won't have any spectators, there's still shit happening. And we're going to talk about what is going on. So everybody, get your seatbelt on, get your Ferrari ready to go, your boxer Ferrari. And we're going to go because we've got some friends who help us do this. And who are they, Matt?
Yeah, our friends over at Geico. And did you know that right now, Geico is offering an extra 15% credit on car, motorcycle, and RV policies? That's 15% on top of the money Geico could already be saving you. So what are you waiting for? You're never going to be able to find a deal quite like this. And there's never been a better time to switch to Geico. So you save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Just go to geico.com to learn more.
Oh, and for those video users, these also work as wonderful pen caps. So
we get a touch and safe ad
Brad,
from Aaron.
I have found so many uses for your touch it safes. It's really fun. You know, it's pinky condoms, your dog condoms. You know.
What are you doing with your dog?
Condoms on my dog.
There
you go.
Some people's noses. Sorry, folks. You have to tune into the video because it's far more fun. I will tell
you that the CDC just said this week that COVID can live on metal and plastic surfaces for up to 5 hours. So that touches.
So we're back to that? Wait, yeah. So we're back to it now?
Oh, dude, it changes every week. So we see our touch it safe sales go up, down, depending on what crazy news is out there. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about things. I'm just going to start right out with something that made me laugh, made me LOL, okay?
Oh,
all right.
No, but I saw this thing online. I sent it to you guys. And it was one of those things that was so horribly bad that it was good, in my opinion. It's these guys called the Budget Brothers, and they put up what they call Fast and Furious for $100. So they remade the Fast and Furious movie for $100. Now I don't know where they spent that $100. Do you guys?
No.
On bad wigs.
I like the mustache on the cop. It's made out of paper, and it's worth. We'll put a link up on our website and on our social media. Go check it out. If you just want a good chuckle. We watched the trailer. We didn't sit down for 20 minutes. I didn't want to, at the end of the day, Matt, I didn't want to say, well, that's 20 minutes I'll never get back. But
just consider it a time donation. You're supporting a real cool group of low budget production guys.
Yeah.
And just consider it donating your time. You know, that's all we can do if we don't have money is just donate our time.
Yeah, you know what? Everybody needs a laugh right now. It'll give you a laugh. Even if you just
definitely
want to make fun of it, it'll give you a laugh. But hey, man, speaking of things coming back, getting things back, remakes, how's that truck coming along?
That's a good question. How is that truck coming along?
Speaking of budgets.
So I went by Galpin Auto Sports and picked up the Lightning with the latest round of mods. Like we were saying, we were doing work on it and then driving it, doing work on it and driving it. And there's some things we're going to end up redoing and stuff just to sort of experiment with it along the way. The big mod on this one was the steering. Can we improve the steering? The stock steering on those, it's a steering box, it's not rack and pinion, and the linkage is really long, and with the twin I-beam suspension, not much you can do about that. But last time we did the update is I got a new steering box from Flaming River, which I love the idea. It was a 12-to-1 quick ratio, but although it mounts exactly the same way as on the Jeeps and Camaros, my steering linkage is on the front of the box, not behind the box. So when the pitman arm hangs down, instead of mounting on the back facing the driver, mine mounts on the front facing the front of the vehicle. So we did it. We mounted it.
You could kind of call that the automotive version of an alternate universe.
Yeah. So you would turn left, and the truck would turn right. And if you wanted to turn, which is probably very oddly a creative security system, if you will, because
it's opposite day.
So I couldn't use the Flaming River box. And I hooked up with a company just out here locally. It does a lot of work called Lee's Power Steering. It's Lee. I'm sure you can go to different companies, and they make a lot of steering boxes, sort of recondition and use their gears, and then they valve it all correctly depending on the weight of the vehicle and how you're going to use it. So they were able to make me another GM steering box that would be just like the Flaming River box. That has a reverse gear set. Now the reverse gear set, the quickest ratio you can get is 14-1. You can't get 12. You can get a 14. So we
get one of those doorknobs. Just get a doorknob, put on.
Well, it's not nearly that bad. So we had already cut the frame and made new mounting points for the steering box and put anti-crush tubes in the frame so we can tighten it down, and bolted it on, made new power steering lines, and then the steering shaft, which is collapsible and has a rag joint, pretty sloppy. On the truck, anybody who's driving these old trucks, even old Broncos, there's a lot of slop, probably 2 inches of slop left and right before you even start to turn.
Yeah.
And the factory ratio was 17-1. So now we have a steering box that's 12-1. And then we just bought, I just got a collapsible steering shaft from Flaming River, the proper U-joints on both ends, and just basically did like a solid shaft there. Now, because it's collapsible, it does take out a little bit of the vibration, which helps. It's not full race, but no slop at all. And 14-1 ratio is a night and day difference. I would like to have seen 12-1, but you just won't be able to do it. But it's fantastic. I've been driving it around town. Out on the freeway, you're not wiggling at the wheel, just to kind of keep it in a straight line. It's going great. It's running great. But my recommendation would be to guys out there with these Broncos and these F-150s or anything like that would be, don't do what I did. I think you can get, if you can get a 14-1 gear set for your Ford box, just rebuild the Ford box. Now, the reason why we put a GM box in there was because I wanted the 12-1, and you can't get it with Ford for sure.
Was it because Chevys are far superior?
It had nothing to do with that at all. I've never even heard that. That's just the weirdest thing I've ever
Well, I've never heard of a guy putting a Chevy steering box on a Ford Lightning either, but
Well, there's one. There's one.
If we can delve into this a little bit more, not to get off the topic, but kind of delve into the topic, this is something that's always been a curiosity to me. So I've just always called it more steering. So like when you get into Jeep Wrangler of any era, except our 79, because it's like a full half turn before it even starts turning. They're usually very direct. I mean, it's, you start to turn the wheel and the thing jerks around. They're kind of hard to keep on the road when you first get in them, if you haven't driven them for a while or at all, because they want to be all over the road, because any movement to make it goes directly in. Of course, my Mini Cooper is a short ratio, and so it's because it's a track car. So when you turn it, my vintage Mini Cooper, so when you turn it, man, that thing cranks like a go-kart. And speaking of which, so a racing cart, so what would the ratios be when they're tighter, like a race cart or the old Mini Cooper or a Jeep? Are those more of like an 8-1 or 1-1, or how does that work?
You can go down. So. I believe you can go as quick as 8-1, and I don't know.
8-1. Okay.
I there's probably some examples of racing cars that have it quite that precise. Honestly, I don't even know if that's a track car as much as maybe like a small oval, like dirt oval or something like that. Right. It's very possible. I could be wrong.
Have you counted, now that you have that in, how many turns of your steering wheel are lock to lock?
I haven't yet. It's interesting you brought it up because the 12-to-1 ratio should have been about 2.5 turns lock to lock.
Right.
And I was at 17, which I think was like 4.5. So probably 3, maybe.
Which is like yeah. My old Mini Cooper, I can say 1 turn is a lock.
Yeah.
And the Jeep maybe 2. You know, because the Mini Coopers, I mean, it's tight.
But lock to lock would be full right to full left. So you'd go, a couple times. But I would
Not
say
the Mini Cooper.
I would say with this setup, going straight to a full left is probably at least 1.5 full revolution around. There will be a crossover.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Your arms are going to cross over a little bit. But
well, like my El Camino, when I redid it, and we've talked about this on a previous show, it has a fast ratio gearbox in it, and it's 2.5 turns lock to lock. But what you're talking about, Aaron, some of the twitchiness in the early Jeeps and things like that, that's not so much the steering box as it is the way what Matt was talking about earlier. They lacked the rag joints and things like that. So you've got, those rag joints are in there to avoid that vibration through the steering wheel and all that.
Got
and twitchiness. We've all driven one of those cars where you feel like if you hit that wrong bump in the road, it's going to be the next lane over. And that's what
my Triumph TR3 is that way, and it uses an old style steering box because it's a 57. But yeah, it's very true. And I didn't know if that was more, of a racing thing or more of an off-road thing. Like maybe you want more direct steering for off-road. You want less moving parts. But this is new to me. I'm not very prolific in.
The other thing I would do would be, guys, with the trucks, that if you don't want to do anything on the steering box, when you do go to replace the rag joint, I looked into it a little bit. I don't know if I found one specifically, but companies like Energy Suspension and I think Prothane, they make sort of a universal fit urethane rag joint, and it's just, it almost looks like a wheel spacer, Brad, where it's just it's a I don't know, 2-inch round. It's a 2-inch round donut, but it has multiple holes on the outside, so it has different mounting locations depending on how it goes, and that'll probably still absorb some vibration but last longer. You could take the rubber rag joint on some of these cars, and if you start hitting a few track days, you can wear that thing out within a few sessions. So I just wanted to eliminate that completely. Now I am getting a little bit more road feel in the steering. I'm getting a little bit more vibration in the steering, not really just cruising down in a straight line, but when you're hitting bumps, it is translating more into the steering. Now the collapsible shaft that I have on there does absorb some of that, so that helps, but it doesn't really bother me that I feel that. I still think I have some work to do on the suspension where I can really start to smooth that out. Right now, the truck is bumpy. I got it lowered and the stance is right, but this is a fairly simple lowering kit where you're using, a little bit stiffer springs and the shocks. Well, maybe not even the spring has to be stiffer because we have a different I-beam in the front, but the shocks are shorter travel. And when you don't have that much more room to move with the shocks, they have to be stiffer, to put more control. So the right way would be to be able to drop the truck and then still have a longer or at least stock length travel shock. So although I have it lowered, I think the thing to do would be to ditch the leaf springs in the back and go to, let's say, a 4-link with a panhard bar and a coilover, maybe a little bit of a notch on the frame, so I have more travel on the rear suspension, because it does on a big bump, it still bottoms out, even though I cut the bump stop. And with the coil springs, I'll be able to dial in ride height and spring rate, but more importantly, with an adjustable shock on that coil spring, I can control rebound, and that's where a lot of that bounciness comes from. And so for the front, I can do that.
If you're going to go that way, it'll make a huge difference. Because again, referencing my El Camino and my Chevelle and like that, that's what we got. Panhard bar, with coilovers, and it's amazing how you can dial it in. Because you're right, you get that where if you valve the shock to where it compresses, but then it comes up, you're getting that bounce, and you
get the bounce.
Dial that all in. You can dial in your ride height and everything. And back to the steering for a second. What I've seen over the years with hot rods is exactly what you're experiencing, because I've seen lots of guys build hot rods that have that, what we're talking about, doesn't steer worth a crap, or it's twitchy. And when you look at it, they're like, I don't understand. I put a Mustang 2 suspension, I put, everything, expensive shocks. And then you look in there and they have like a Speedway steering column. And I don't mean Speedway, the brand. I mean like a short track, where it's a solid rod, with a Hyman on, each. And they don't understand why it's all coming up through the steering wheel on them. There's a reason that these car manufacturers have spent millions of dollars over the years to figure all that out, right, guys? I mean,
they have, and it makes a huge difference. But I knew what I was getting into with that, on doing sort of the, if you will, sort of a direct drive on the steering. It's really not that bad. Keep in mind, on a truck, I'm not running 22-inch wheels with a 30 series tire. I've still got, I've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches of sidewall in the tire. So there's probably more vibration is soaked up in that than anything else coming from the ground. That's the first hit that it takes, and then into the suspension, and then into the frame, into the steering. I think once I get the suspension dialed in, I just can't do anything with the suspension yet, because once we move to the new engine and transmission, and it's aluminum block, the way to do that suspension is get the truck built and then go back and weigh it. We have to basically corner balance it. We'll have to get the weights for each corner. That'll allow me to dial in the spring rate. And then from there, I can dial in the shocks, or something adjustable. Even the shocks these days, there's so many options from Hotchkiss and Ride Tech and QA1 that these guys they're using this on street cars and track cars, and I think they got them dialed in a little bit better than just sort of the over the counter, like 12-way adjustable ones that took a lot more trial and error. I think there's so many guys now running street cars and autocross cars on like Optima Challenge and whatnot that even have some ideas on what the settings should be. That helps out a lot. So I don't know. It'll be an interesting experiment.
Okay, real world thing though is, I remember my first set of adjustable coilovers that I got.
Yeah. And
I will tell you that some of these new shocks, where you just turn a little valve button and it says, stiffer or
wait. You turn a valve button? Come on, Brad.
Turn a little adjuster.
Sorry, I had to get you on that.
An adjuster knob.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, it's way easier than crawling under the car and with your spanner wrench that you're sitting there trying to get, just set right and turn it. And then also, oh, wait, I'm going the wrong way. All right, so you turn it around and you come back that way. It's, there's...
Well, I mean, it's funny because I think it was a couple years ago at SEMA, Hotchkiss came out with an adjustable shock, and their big thing was exactly that. They're like, look at our shock. I'm like, yeah, it's adjustable. A lot of people have them. They're like, ours has a large knob with a satisfying click for each one. I have a set of maybe they're Takiko D-Sport, D-Spec, D-Sport. I forgot what they are on a Mustang, and there's a little cap on the top, and you got to drop.
You have a Mustang?
Like, yeah, I do. And then you got to drop like either the adjuster wrench or an Allen wrench in the hole, and there's no click or anything. So you constantly have to. You never know where you are with it. So once you put it in, you got to back it all out and then count how many turns out you want to go, right?
And there's nothing worse than when you don't have the right tool. Oh, I don't have that, or I don't have the spanner wrench, or, it's a mess. But things have come a long way. So, hey, do you think that we should have gone to Bonneville this year?
I heard, right? I heard
I was in Alaska
instead,
but
yeah, he was fishing in Alaska, which sounded awesome. It looked
great. But yeah, Bonneville happened despite COVID, and they even had spectators. I guess when you have people, have either of you guys ever been?
I have
never
not.
been.
No.
Never been.
It is the most incredible place because, first of all, as Gray Baskerville, who was with Hot Rod and a legend in our industry, he pointed out to me that it's one of the few places on earth where you can actually see the curvature of the earth because it's such an open spanse for so long. You actually can see the horizon go like that, which blows me away because, as a flat earther,
I knew something was coming, Brad.
No, you really
was
can.
Inevitable. Something was coming.
But it's incredible. But the one disappointing thing the first time you're ever there is that you realize, oh, wait a minute. Spectators are like 3 miles away, because you got a car going 400 miles an hour. When it starts spinning, it spins for miles. And so you get there and you lose a little bit of that sense of the speed because, at most racetracks, you're within a couple hundred feet, where there you're miles away. Now you realize that car is moving, but it's off in the horizon, it's off in the distance. And you do have to wear some good protection under your shorts, guys, because
it's interesting you say that, Brad. Is everybody that shoots video, it looks like the video is so far away. Where are we with video lens technology? We can't be a mile and a half away.
You know how much like a 400 or 600 millimeter lens is? We're talking like 10 grand.
When I went out there,
Aaron, there's probably some iPhone attachment that does it for you.
I saw it on the internet. Yeah. No,
yeah.
I've got an $1,800 200 millimeter lens, and I was having trouble getting shots of the bears at like 200 yards. You know what I mean? It's like.
No, I went out there and I took my Nikon and I rented one of those 400 millimeter, the ones you see at the football games and everything like that.
You have
2.8, and you put it on a monopod, the lens, not the camera, because the lens needs its own support.
Yeah.
But the problem is when you get into that lens and you're looking through it, that car is moving so fast as it sweeps across, and trying to keep it in the lens and keep it focused and everything, it's difficult. And
you need a fluid head for that.
Videos like that. I tried shooting video.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it's all bouncy and you know, it's an art.
Plus you have the heat distortion off that mirroring, landscape too. I mean, I would imagine, unless you're elevated, unless you're at like an elevation of several hundred feet, like a platform, it would be really, really hard to shoot that on anything that's what do they call that category, Brad? The one that we're in, professional amateur or something.
Well, you know what I haven't seen?
Yeah,
now
that's
that
how I do all my porn.
Now that we're talking about this, I haven't seen any drone footage of Bonneville. And
You
it's
try-
probably,
I-
can the
windy.
drones keep up?
Windy, and I would assume that drones are a no-no.
Yeah,
I
because
think
if it
there's
fell or got in the
Yeah.
way, or
it's catastrophic. So I would think that there's no drones.
well, there were.
Understandably.
There was some world records broke. I think George Poteet was out
Yes.
there, but Brad, maybe you can explain a little bit about what happened, just because obviously everybody listening to this show is a car guy. So when they say that he won a record in a piston powered car, we're talking about he has a I don't know, gas engine. I don't know what kind of fuel he's running, if it's turbo, supercharged, what that means, but not a rocket. It's not a jet propelled.
It's not jet propelled. It's not. Now they have an electric category.
Or electric, yeah.
And George Poteet, who, by the way, is 72, and he drove the car. He is awesome, and his Speed Demon Streamliner shattered the record. Now, the thing about Bonneville, if you don't understand it, is just going out and running once is not a record. You have to run the. For instance, his old record in his class of AA Streamliner was 417 miles an hour. He went out and did 439. So what he has to do is go out, run that 439, bring the car back and put it in impound. It has to sit in impound overnight. They can't work on it. They can refuel it.
Wow.
They can do any maintenance for safety. But what they get for doing that, if he goes, I can go faster than that, they can go get in line again and go again, but their old 439 pass is wiped out then. So if they go to impound, the car sits overnight, and all of the guys that are going for records, they get to get first in line, so they get that morning air, and they go at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he came out, and he did back it up, and then he went again, and he went 469, 470, and he did a 481 that he did not back up. 481 miles an hour. That's crazy fast.
Our buddy Amir Rosenbaum from he had Spectre air filters and sold to K&N, and very interestingly, his Speedliner, the black one, which was the Cadillac powered piston engine, just went up on Bring a Trailer for sale, and that was a record holder as well. That was over 400 miles an hour. He might have had the previous record until Poteet just went out now and set a few more records. So I had his Speedliner, the Spectre Speedliner, on the show on CarCast. He brought it on a trailer in pieces. We assembled it in the parking lot and fired it up in the parking lot of the show, which was pretty interesting to do. You don't realize how incredibly big they are.
Oh yeah.
And just long, like it's snug as hell, but it's long and not meant to turn. I'll tell you that much. No. It wasn't really meant to turn. Like trying to get that thing in and out of a parking lot was a pain in the ass, but pretty cool stuff.
Now, George has a bunch of other records. You know, he has that Barracuda that Troy Trepanier built for him that went out and did records in a full-size body class. And then I have a really good friend of mine that went out, I can't remember what they're called, the little two-seater Cadillacs that they made in the 90s. What was it, XLR or?
XLR, I think.
Yeah. He built one of those for a class out there, and he balled that up at 300 miles an hour and lived to talk about it. And I could tell you the whole story. He's a very animated guy, and he was telling my wife and I the story up in the skybox at Barrett-Jackson, and we're standing up there, the auction's going on, and all of a sudden he goes, yeah, Brad? And I'm going along, and all of a sudden it got quiet. He goes, that's not a good thing, because that means I went airborne.
You were flying in the air. That's what I was thinking.
He goes, so I went quiet, and he goes, and all of a sudden, it started turning around, and he takes his hand, and he slams it, I mean, like super hard on the table. He goes, and it went bam, and he goes, and then I reached up and I pulled the chutes, and he goes, and then it went quiet again, and then it went bam, and everybody's looking at us. He did this like 4 times, and he goes, what I found out later on was when I pulled my chutes, they came out and tangled into each other, and he goes, so they kind of semi-deployed on one side, and it was like taking the steering wheel and just yanking it, and it just yanked the car, and he said that he skidded for 3/4 of a mile on the roof, and he said the visor of his helmet came open, and it filled with the salt because it was like scraping along, and he goes, I thought I was going to smother to death, and he goes, this boy comes running up. He goes, this good old boy comes running up, and he goes, he bashed out the rest of the windshield plastic, and he was just staring at me, and I blew as hard as I can, and I blew the salt out of my mouth, and I went, are you going to help me get out of here? And he goes, oh, you're alive.
Oh, that's messed up.
Oh, it was hilarious. We should have him on the show sometime just to tell the story. It was hilarious.
That's messed up.
But
my God.
The car was destroyed. It was just a ball of nothing. The other stuff that happened out there was electric vehicles are starting to get out to Bonneville on a pretty regular basis. And there was one called the Electroliner with a Tesla powertrain. And it's EV West and Hickey Speed, I think it is. They put this together, and they beat the old record by 5 miles an hour, running 218.20 miles an hour and backing it up. And
what kind of vehicle? What did it look like?
It was a Streamliner. It was also a Streamliner. And you know, I just heard today, this is the last day as we're recording here, that they did have, you know, their bad moments too. I guess some guy on a motorcycle, he fell down at 252.
Oh. Wow, 252, you said?
252 on a bike.
Wow.
And they said there's no real information or who it was, that he was in helicoptered off in critical, very, very critical condition.
Oh, man.
I can't imagine, I mean, falling out of bed at 252 miles.
Listen, this is how we lost Jesse Combs.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
setting records like this.
Yeah.
You know,
but you know.
Well, way to ruin the story, Brad. Thanks. What else you got?
No, we've got to, because what we've got to do is put everything in perspective, because people look at Bonneville, and I've talked to so many people, and, you know, like our friend Jimmy Shine, he's holds some records out there and stuff.
Yeah.
The thing is that people, and he's told me this, is that people look at it and they don't think it's that difficult, because it's just a flat salt bed for as far as you can see, and you're just putting it. No, man, you can still get killed. You can still get hurt. And as the story I just told, because of the safety, you can walk away, but man, you are going to ball that thing up, because you don't come to a stop for miles and miles and miles.
Yeah. Well, and people don't think of those factors of, hey, I'm on the roof, my visor came up and filled with salt. I mean, you could very well suffocate or get shredded, because salt is broken glass, you know.
How long is the total run versus the recorded run? And then how do you know how is it?
I believe, I'm not positive on this, but I believe you have a mile of run up to gain up to speed. Then the clocks go on at, I believe, and I could be totally wrong here, at 2 miles, they go off at 4 miles. I think you're clocked at like 4 miles, because I believe it's a total 7 mile of salt.
Okay.
But,
and then you don't have to sustain that top speed for a minimum amount of time. You just need to hit it within that 4 mile.
Yeah, within there, you've got to hit it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you got to be able to back it up the next day if it's going to be a recorded time. I got it. Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. It's I mean, my Bonneville watch company, the whole reason I named it Bonneville was because of the fact that when you go there, you're not like every other type of racing where you're racing one other car or a group of cars. You're going against the clock. And that's really what you're trying to do, is beat the clock, get the best time, and it's you against everything. And that's why I named it Bonneville, because I thought it really fit with the timing of everything.
Yeah, that's good. It'd be interesting to go out there.
Did you see what he did there? It fit with the timing of everything.
Oh, yeah. No, I got you.
And you can find Bonneville watches at. No. Now while we mere mortals were, toiling away, working, and, I was fighting insurance companies over things that happened at my house.
What a nightmare.
He was, jumping in exotic cars, I think Ferrari Daytonas and things like that, and going on. Tell us about your road trip, man. It looked really good.
Yeah.
So far off, Brad. There were no Daytonas there. There were no Daytonas. No, I was privileged enough to attend and participate in the inaugural run of the Napa Valley 750, which was started by my friend Rick Kaufman. I don't want to say and myself, because I didn't end up organizing it, but I was participatory in the design work and layout and artwork, and that was my contribution. But it had been a long time conversation for like the last, 5 years or so. And Rick pulled it off with a small group of associates and employees at his Harvest Inn, which is in St. Helena, California, in the wine country. And man, I got to say, Rick's been my friend for 34 years. And this was kind of like the accumulation of every resource and contact and relationship he's ever built and made, not to show off, but to bring the best rally experience, I'd say damn near in the country. The group of 20 folks that we had, or 18, I think, that we had 20 cars, because a couple brought a couple, and 15 people out of the Colorado group, which we run the Peak to Peak rally every year with. Great group of folks. He's been running with them for like 20 something years. And they showed up, all of them, every registered guest. We originally were trying to have it in April, and with COVID, we were able to reschedule it to now. It was a little hot. It was in the 90s most days, but we ran up to the coast. Every day we ran about 250 miles or so in vintage cars. We had a couple contemporaries. We had a 812. We had a couple F12s. We had was it California Spider? No. No, we had a 358 or 458. Sorry. I think those were the only contemporaries. All the rest, the one you're probably thinking of, Brad, was I believe, a 65 275 GTB,
GTB,
which Rick was able to acquire. We were driving the Morgan. I was trying to bring the Mini, but I couldn't fit them both in the trailer. I thought I had bought an 18-foot trailer, and I bought a 17.5 deck trailer. If I would have had those 5 inches, no shit. If I would have had those 5 inches, I could have brought both cars. So we just ran the Morgan. It ran near flawlessly.
You couldn't put extended hinges on?
Believe me, if I had an extra day, I would have fit both cars in there one way or another. I was even thinking, well, if I float the rear wheel on the Morgan up to the, anyway, I could have made it work with another day. I would have done. I would have backed the Morgan in, towed it up, and ran it like into the A part of the, absolutely.
Now Aaron, I have a question. So unlike some rallies like Copper State and things where they start at point A and end up at point B, right, was this always centrally out of his resort and then to a different location and back?
Yes, and that's kind of what made it unique, is that most rallies do. They go from point to point and then continue. Rick had the brilliant idea, especially with the COVID issue, of centralizing it at his Harvest Inn, and which is naturally socially distanced because it's like little cabins, like little duplex cabins all over the property for the most part. So we were all distant, and then we get in our cars, which are naturally distant, and we were able to make the run out of that central location, and then we branched out every day. So sometimes we'd make a huge loop and then end up back where we began for lunch, and then branch out from there and come back on a different route. Cool. But he really designed them well. And, you know, the roads there are for the most part excellent. There was a little bit of road work on the first day, which caused a flat tire on one of, actually we had a Lamborghini Aventador, and it had some heating, you know, a couple cars had heating issues. Really the contemporaries did. We had a one owner original 246 Dino, which got damaged during transport. And it pushed the radiator and it punctured the radiator up on the mounts.
I saw your post about that.
Yeah, which was a bummer because, you know, those cars are a little hot notoriously, but this one is really, really amazing. And but the people were so cool. I mean, the food was amazing. You know, so some of the wineries accommodated us. We had a Michelin star chef. I mean, it's not a cheap rally, and it's definitely something I wouldn't normally be able to afford. It's about 7,000 a head, but it all goes to charity. I was able to contribute art, which my painting sold for 10,000 for the local charity, which was really cool. It's really a premium rally and a very small group, and it'll probably always be full because it's the same group. And like I said, they've been running for,
in a great area too, you know.
And it really is. But I got to say, I'm really proud of Rick. Like I said, this wasn't an eco trip. He really wanted to bring that group out of Colorado and into the California wine country, and he wanted to give them the best experience that he could for his friends. And that was really, like, I got chills. It really was the idea of it that was really, really honorable. And I got to say, I've participated in half a dozen rallies, I think. And this was by far the best experience of any rally I've ever been in. And peak to peak's hard to beat. Same thing, close niche group, real responsible drivers, the most beautiful and exotic $1 million cars you've ever seen in the fall of Colorado. I mean, it's hard to beat that, but damn it, Rick one-upped it, I gotta say, because the wine country is gorgeous. The weather was beautiful. I didn't get too sunburned, but I have some good sun bars on me. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. I'm totally in love with it.
What I want to bring up is a lot of our listeners may not even be familiar with a lot of these runs, because in the muscle car world and the hot rod world, there really aren't any, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because
there's cruises,
Power Tour,
there's cruises,
things like that. But you know, like Copper State and the Peak to Peak, and you know, there are so many of them now, and it's really a really neat way of going. These aren't, you know, for those of you that don't know, it's not something where it's like you're not out competing to get there first or anything else.
No competition.
This is an opportunity for guys to get together with some really unique cars, usually kind of classifying. Like if Matt was putting one on, it would be the Burbank Fox Body run, and it would be from Adam Carolla's studio, 5 miles to the burger joint, and then back, right?
I mean, the problem is there would be too many people. It would just be too many.
And that's the problem with rallies. And you know, I talked to our mutual friend Amy about this, and there's some real challenges when you run these rallies, especially with the supercar crowd and kind of the new millennial money and all these things. It's a very, very different experience. Not to say it's a bad experience. It's just a very, very different experience. Most of the drivers in this rally were 60 plus years old. I mean, we're talking guys that used to race. I mean, one of them was a Pikes Peak world champion. I mean, this guy's a rally driver, and some really, David, and some really, really wonderful people. But this was an opportunity to drive. I mean, there were $1 million cars. Rick's car is one just sold for $3.8 million last week. I mean, our car was probably the least value, other than a replica 356 that was there. That was probably close to ours because it was a premium one. All the rest were original cars, vintage Ferraris, vintage Porsches. There were probably 4 or 5 356 A's and B's, some of which were damn near $1 million cars. And the people driving them owned them since they were new, and they're in their 80s. There was one couple in their 90s. And man, I had a hard time keeping up with these guys in a straight line. So, but it was all beautiful corners, well-groomed roads, beautiful, beautiful sights, coastal runs. This isn't like highway stuff. We avoided the freeways in every way that we could. Rick's design of the roads is he is an enthusiastic driver and loves driving vintage. This was a real testament to what these cars were built for and the drivers who love to drive them. It was a real motoring
That's it right there.
experience.
You hit it right there, Aaron, because it's an opportunity for these guys to get their cars out of the garage, drive them with like-minded people, and get to build some camaraderie. So that was really cool. What was the name of it so people can watch for it?
It's the Napa Valley 750, and it's on the Harvest Inn website. So it's kind of a private group. But I did some publications while I was there. Rick and I did a bunch of interviews, and something jumped out of my mouth, and I'd like to read it because I loved the quote, and I'm not one to brag about words, but this one's a keeper. I put it in my phone. I said, a car rally is the communion of the automotive spirit.
Yeah, it's good.
Right? And it just came out, and it really rang truth. And I think it's one of my favorite personal quotes out of this manic brain.
Guys, we got to start wrapping this episode up. But before we do, why don't you talk about you took a road trip too, Matt, with Adam up to the racetrack. How'd that go?
Yeah, historics.
Yeah, the Monterey Car Week was canceled. The Rolex Historics were essentially canceled, and so this past weekend, which would have been the week before the Rolex Historics typically happen, there was what they call Driver Appreciation Day or Driver Appreciation Week. It wasn't really a week, but it was just sort of a good group of hardcore guys that wanted to go out and have a track day anyway. And it was just Laguna Seca rented out for the most part. But it was organized like the normal racing weekend. So they did have something like 8 groups and probably 150, 180 cars in total. Amongst the 8 groups.
Good number.
And we got a group of B sedan guys together, some BMW 2002s, a bunch of Datsun 510s, and Adam brought out one of his 510s, the different drummer car that we were looking for wheels for a long time, and went out there and got to shake it down and do some laps in it, and Adam had a good racing time with that, and it was a nice kind of a weekend. His son came up with us as he's done in the past, and we had a couple friends show up, and a buddy of ours, a fan of CarCast, who's been out to the race a few times, said, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to come by and see some racing. I'm going to bring my big ass motorhome with the pop outs and set up a camp for you guys to hang out for during the track, which was really nice to be able to fire up the barbecue and make some street tacos and hang out inside with the air conditioning. And by the way, his has got Wi-Fi and satellite and internet connection and some great stuff. So
those things get really expensive.
Yeah, it was a fun gig. So I appreciate that guy, Justin Tobin, for bringing that out. But it was a fun weekend. We drove up, we did, the racing was just Saturday and Sunday. So we drove up Thursday night. We took just a nice vacation day on Friday, 17-mile drive, a couple nice restaurants, and a lot of sitting outside and wearing a mask, but it was all fine. And the weather was good. So it was a fun weekend. If you go back to CarCast last Friday, you'll get more of the details on how it actually went and some issues with the car and how we fixed it. And I think we'll probably have some videos, and maybe there might be a little bit of in-car footage that you can see of that as well. So you can see the great mix-up of cars. But it was good. It was a fun event. We always love going to Laguna Seca and seeing the vintage cars.
I can post some video too, Brad. If you want, I'll upload some video from the rally so you can see. We can put that on the website as well.
That'd be great.
This video is great, right, Matt? In-car footage. Oh, damn.
I know, we don't have time to get into what I did, so we'll have to wait until next time for me to tell you about how I installed cabinets in my garage. So.
Oh, wow. I'm so bummed we missed that.
Come on, man.
Oh.
I've got
That's
video
something.
though. I have video.
That's
Oh,
something.
okay,
There you
great,
go.
great.
In
Post
slow
that up.
motion,
All right.
right? You have slow-mo video.
Absolutely. You've got to get the,
Yeah.
the Phillips head in slow-mo.
There you go.
So,
Oh.
Sounds awesome.
the screw gun.
Hey, real quick on the steering, we got disconnected on something, but I'd love some people's thoughts. I've got a 57 TR3 with a 200 CID Mustang 6-cylinder in it. It's been lowered a little bit, but it's running pretty much stock after that. I've got some Anson style slotted mags made by Shelby, so they're wider. And my steering is shot, and I can't figure it out. I've rebuilt everything, and I'm looking for some solutions. And I lost my contact from the historics, that a gentleman that raced them, and was basically saying, this is what you got to do. Just bring it here to Monterey. We'll put it up on a lift next to mine and go through my parts bin. I've lost that contact of 15, 18 years ago. I would love, if any of you have racing experience in a TR3, what I can do to make this thing an off-the-hill driver.
I know
right
the
now,
guy you're talking about, Aaron.
he was kind of a tall guy,
Yeah,
long kind of face,
he was
long hair.
Killed in a horrible accident. His steering went out.
Oh, stop, would you, Brad? But anyway, but in all seriousness, any of you listeners, if you have some expertise in this, I would love some feedback. I'm not stuck on keeping it original, because it's not. It's an old rally car from the 60s and early 70s. It's got some history. And I just want to drive that little fucker. So if anybody has any clues to that, please send them our way. I'd love to hear from you.
We were talking offline, and it sounded like you're getting a crazy bump steer issue.
Yeah.
So
I am getting some bump steer, and
maybe there's a bump steer kit or something like that can help out.
Well, what I'm wondering is if people are going to say, get the steering rack from a 62, TR4 or something of that nature. I just don't know this car very well. I picked it up 15, 16 years ago, and it's one of my favorite little cars, and I'm trying to get my collection into the 90+ percentile of
definitely get some
and drivability.
Get some photos of the current hardware on that car, right?
It's
that'll help.
Bone stock,
right?
Yeah.
I think that'll help, and then we can kind of take it from there. But I think we'll find something.
Cool.
I certainly
guys, we gotta wrap it up. Matt, where
Thank you.
can they find us online?
Check us out at shiftandsteer.com, and you can find me at Motorator. I've been putting up some of the videos from the Datsun 510 at Laguna Seca and the Lightning and some other stuff. So check that out. All at Motorator.
Cool.
Awesome.
Hey, I want to say that, thanks everybody. We listened to you, and as you can tell from this show, it's longer. We had some comments from people that said, hey, what happened to the show? Why did it get so short? Well, we were on Zoom. We were trying that out, and we hadn't subscribed till we knew that it was going to work. And it is working, so we subscribed, and now we're on unlimited. We can keep going. So thanks for letting us know you wanted more show, and we're giving it to you. And you can find
because we're naturally long-winded. And,
that's right. You can find me, and please follow me at Instagram, Bradley_Fanshaw. Aaron, they can find you where, buddy?
I'm pretty easy to find under Aaron Hagar on most social media. My website is theRatRunnersGarage.com. And I do have the TR3 up under projects. So if you want to see some views of it on there, I'll add some more of the undercarriage so you can see that. But it's a pretty nifty little car. So find me there.
Sounds good. Okay, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Listening to Shift and Steer. We'll talk to you next week.
Drive on.